Hello, this is Pastor James Hargrave with Greatest Love Ministries. Today we're going to do a video about going in a little bit more specifically why I think an international crisis could begin or is predicted to begin on September 22nd and precisely around 8:03 p.m. Central Time on the 22nd of September. That's the fall equinox, exactly. We'll get into that. I wanted to show you how I got to that idea. First, the most compelling evidence comes from Scripture itself. There's a lot of, when you look at all Scripture together, you look at Daniel, the Gospels, what Jesus said, what Paul said, what Peter says, and you look at Revelation, it all supports each other. It's like a hand in a glove. All these prophecies interlock and support each other. But for this video, we're going to focus in just on Daniel 9, because I think it's the clearest as to why it definitely could be this equinox. And I'm going to use that as my foundation. The other information I'm going to go into is a little bit about Freemasonry and how they do things and what they seem to be hiding in plain public. What they seem to be talking about in plain public. And that evidence is kind of like straw evidence. It might be something, it might not be something. You never know if they're lying or not, or if it's red herring. But so we're going to look at the biblical evidence first, and then we'll go into seeing what they seem to be saying. Because they both are lining up, that's what has me really wondering if this could be it. So let's go to Daniel here. This is Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. And again, I'm interpreting this as the festival of week, which happened once a year. It was one of the three festivals, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the Jews had to make pilgrimage to the temple in Jerusalem. So 70 weeks or 77s are decreed for your people in your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place, or that can be translated the most holy one. So 70 years. So in modern times, Independence Day of Israel was May 14, 1948. The 70th year was May 14th, 2018. That's when the 70 years is up. This was during the reign of Donald Trump. In fact, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, the U.S. Embassy. That's the abomination of desolation, because that embassy being in Israel, you remember it's in one of the Gospels, it says the abomination of desolation where it does not belong. Because it's a Muslim building, because Barack Obama is Muslim, he's coming back to power. That's why it's an abomination. So Trump took over 2017. This was the 2018. This was the middle of 2008. So he was president for a year and a half when this happened. And then let's go on to verse 25. Know and understand this, from the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Anointed One, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 years and 62 years. Now that 7 years, I believe, and it's clear from my other study of Scripture, is tacked on to these 7 years. The 70 years. So it's a 77-year prophecy. And that also reflects the first coming of Christ, 77 weeks. The decree of Cyrus to let the Jews go back to Israel from the Babylonian captivity was 539 BC. 77 weeks, or 77 sevens, is 539 years. So this was an exact prophecy. That's another reason why I believe it's 77 years here. So this 7 years is tacked on to the 7 years, and it's talking about the return of Christ. But then it also says there's 62 years. So this would have been pointing to roughly 2009, 2010, when Barack Obama came to power. It says it will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. After 62 sevens, the Anointed One will be put to death and will have nothing. So if this is about Obama, he was in there, 8 years. He left office in January 2017. And that's what it's talking about here by his death. It doesn't say that in the text. It says he's lopped off. His power comes to an end. His reign stops is what it's talking about here. Meaning he has nothing. Doesn't mean he dies. The people of the ruler who will come. So the ruler will come. We have to have this in context. So this is Trump. Trump's in power 2017, 18, 19, 20. So if this is talking about right there at that 70, and we know that also from Revelation because it talks about the sixth king and it talks about him in the present tense. One king is. The next king has not yet come, but will come for a short time, it says in Revelation. The seventh king will be in there for a short time. So here, I believe it's talking about that seventh king, the people of the ruler who will come, meaning Biden, will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The sanctuary means set apart place. It could be a reference to the capital, a holy place, a set apart place. The capital, Washington, D.C., the city, and the sanctuary. And then the end will come if this destruction of this city is a nuclear bomb, the end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolations have been decreed. He will confirm, and this is basically confirm, he will take an oath, like an oath of office. He will make an oath with confirm a covenant with many for 1 year. In the middle of the year, not necessarily that year, but the next year, I believe, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. If a bomb goes off, a nuclear bomb goes off in Washington, D.C., it will be financial chaos, financial collapse. There'll be a currency crisis, a financial crisis, a war. World War III will begin. So if this is roughly a year and a half from Biden, from this oath, so to speak, this covenant, now that would have been up earlier than that. If you start that countdown from January 20th, it would have been up earlier, or it would have already happened. But you have to understand, the presidents of this country early on in this country were inaugurated in the spring, March, not in January. That happened later with an amendment. And another thing, the Hebrew kings were anointed in the month of Nisan, which is March, right around March, in spring. The other thing about that is God seems to mark time a lot by the equinoxes. It's universal in that sense. An equinox. It's very exact when the equinoxes are and happen. So if this started roughly from the spring equinox, 2001, to the spring equinox, 2002, then another half of a year would be the fall equinox, 2022. And that's why I think this prophecy is pointing to the fall equinox, 2022. And when is the fall equinox? 2022. Fall equinox, I just did a little search here on Google. Well, in Washington, D.C., it's 9:03 p.m. because of daylight savings time. It's really 8:03 p.m. in Washington, D.C., but because of daylight savings time, which is a construct of government, the only reason it's 9:03 is because of governmental law that did that. You can really figure 8:03 without the machinations of man. What's interesting about that time too is going back to 9/11, that they first recognized that there was a so-called attack on this country at 9:03 a.m. It's kind of interesting. The times line up there. Now, one of the things the Freemasons have put out, this was back in 2009, Operation Blackjack. It's up on YouTube. You can find it, Operation Blackjack. And I'm just going to be playing it here and commenting. And the date in this Operation Blackjack about North American cities being bombed by a nuclear bomb, including Toronto, Mexico City, Washington, D.C., New York. This came up on the London Telegraph, digital or online newspaper back in 2009, earlier, right? It was January, I think. And these bombs go off in June. So the warning supposedly to the intelligence agencies that are discovering this destructive plot starts June 20th, 2 p.m. And then we'll get to then June 21st, 12 p.m. Government leaders put out a warning of an imminent threat. Max level warning, critical. Here's a picture, supposedly the bomb or one of the bombs in London. Everybody's panicking, trying to get out of the cities. Police are raiding so-called known militants. These would probably be patriots, freedom fighters, people trying to stand up to the corruption of the government. It's a run on gasoline. And interesting, now June 22nd, 8 a.m., there's the van. 8:03 a.m., And there in London, the bomb goes off June 22nd, 8:03, 20 seconds a.m. Now, I know the whole 8:03 is interesting. You remember I told you the equinox is at 8:03. That's a coincidence to me. The Bible seemed to be saying the equinox is exactly 8:03, and now the Freemasons are saying 8:03. There's some other things in here that you can interpret in various ways. I don't know if there's one of these going to go off or more than one. But let's move up here to the next. I want to get to when they go to 1 week after the bomb. Okay, now we're in part 2, New York. It's evacuating. Oh, come on. (8:03). 8:03, 27 seconds. This is New York City. Washington, D.C. is the same in here. 8:03, 27 seconds. Now, what's interesting about the Masons here, and I'm just going to cite a reference. This is from the web. I can't pronounce this man's name. Masonic Papers by Brother Alain Brenheim, 33-degree Mason, the dating of Masonic records, 1986, an essay. And in this essay is talking about how Masons traditionally throughout their history have coded things. Here it's going through the coding of the year, a 4,000-year code. There's a lot of this is based, they're saying right in here, of how the Jews denoted time. And it's all discussed in here. So here, and what's interesting, we're going to get down here, and let me, bear with me, we'll get through the 6,000-year code, 530-year code, all these different codes that they can use. Now we get here to the coding of the month. March, the first month code. So March is the first month code. Nisan happens usually in March. That's the ecclesiastical new year of the Jews. And what's interesting here too, look here, June is also can be a first month code. So they did this June 22nd. So that's a first month code on the 22nd is when they're saying this. Remember, now let's jump over here to Meet the Press, a transcript with Colin Powell. This was when he was on Meet the Press in October 19, 2008. And he says the problems will always be there, and there's going to be a crisis come along on or in the 21st or 22nd of January that we don't even know about right now. January, the first month of the year on the Gregorian calendar, but the 22nd again, first month. So we got June the 22nd, first month. We got January 22nd, first month. And if you remember, they purged it off the internet, but Joe Biden also on October 19th, 20th, was giving a speech to fundraisers. And what he said was, we're getting ready to elect Barack Obama. And mark my words, the world's going to test Barack Obama like they did JF Kennedy. And I interpret that as the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it shall not be 6 months from that until the world tests Barack Obama like JF Kennedy. So that's interesting. Let's go back to the Masonic records. So you got the June first month code. And what's interesting, you get to September, the Jewish New Year, as far as the civil New Year goes, is September, the month of Tishri, and or Tishri, and that's in September, October. So now if we go back, let's look at the calendar here. So some things that are interesting here. September 22nd, 803. Now let's look at the Hebrew, what day is that on the Hebrew calendar? Where is it? Okay, we're looking here. Let's see, right here, the 22nd of September 2022 after sunset. The day begins for the Jews after sunset, not in the morning. So it's really, that's why I think they say on Blackjack it was 8:03 a.m. Plus, in Freemasonry and Satanism, everything's backward. Up is down, left is right, good is bad. Everything's reversed. Because they're the enemies of God. They want to do the exact opposite of what God does. They want to, they're his enemies. So sunset was earlier. So 8:03 would have been after sunset, and you see it's the 27th of Elul. That's the Hebrew month of Elul. What month is Elul on the Hebrew? And just go look up this right here, the dating of the Masonic records, and you'll see, read all about it. How Freemasons, which Washington, D.C., and our whole founding fathers were Freemasons. Let me show you something here. Let's pull up the months here. Nisan, first month of the year. Nisan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Elul, 27th, the 6th month, just like June is our 6th month. And here, instead of saying June 22nd, they're saying basically September 22nd. It's just how you code it. You got to put the pieces together. And now also another thing that's interesting here, this 27th. See, on Elul 27th, look there, it's the 27 pops up right there. 8:03:27 when the Washington, D.C. bomb goes off. So that's two ways you can confirm that it's talking about 8:03 p.m. on the 22nd. Because if this was 8:03 a.m. on the 22nd of September, this would be a 26. So that's just some of the reasons why I'm thinking that it could definitely be September 22nd. And with that, I better end because we've gone a long ways here and spent too much time. But one more thing, let me just show you one more thing. Revelation, what is it? Now I hope I'll be able to find it. Let me do it this way. Hold on. Oh no, come on. I'm having a hard. I'm not finding this. Let me pause this so I can find it. Okay, I'm back with you again. Sorry for the pause. This is Revelation chapter 17, verse 9. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads of this beast, the 7 heads of the beast, are 7 hills on which the woman sits. I think this is a reference to Rome and Pope Francis. There are also 7 kings. They are also 7 kings. So the 7 heads are 7 kings. 5 have fallen. These are U.S. presidents. And actually, at the inauguration of Trump, there were 5. There were 5 previous presidents there. One is Donald Trump. The other has not yet come, but when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. And I'm thinking that could be a year and a half from the equinoxes, and that's Biden. The beast, Barack Obama, who once was and now is not, is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7, or he's one of the 7, and he's going to his destruction. So it's interesting. Daniel and Revelation go together. This is talking present tense. One is. You just got to be able to recognize the times we're living in, and there's good reason to do that. Just look at Daniel chapter 12. It tells us 2,625 years from the interpretation of that passage points us right to 2018 and the abomination of desolation being set up. All right, with that, I better go. Thank you very much.